seconds.
Good evening, everyone. Turn your songbooks to number 957, This World Is Not My Home. 957, This World Is Not My Home. We'll sing the first and third verses. "957, This World Is Not My Home." This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Just up in glory land we'll live eternally. The saints on every hand are shouting victory. Their song of sweetest praise drifts back from heaven's shore, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore.
Good evening. Thankful that you're all here tonight. I know it's been a very cool and crisp day. Grateful that we have the opportunity to worship in this warm building. If you are visiting with us for the first time, certainly grateful that you've chosen to be here, and members alike, we're grateful that you have made the trip this evening. Have a few announcements, and then we'll move on to our prayer list. Monday night for the Master is January 27th at 6 p.m. here at the building. There is a sign-up sheet in the back for items to bring for that. There is a save the date for a baby shower for Ashley Hollis. That's February 2nd at 1:30 p.m. Please see Heather Hatton for anything or any questions or contributions you'd like to make towards that. The Sweetheart Banquet is going to be on February 8th here at the building at 4 p.m. And that's going to be honoring those who have been married 40 plus years, and also the WWS group. If you have further questions on that, please see Justin Hatton. And I was given a little bit extra information on that this evening. Doyle was asking for a special song that you have in your marriage, or perhaps when you had your first child, or whatever it is that really just stands out to y'all. Let him know that, and he's going to work that into a game, I believe. We're having our gospel meeting coming up soon with Eric Owens. That'll be February 23rd through the 26th. So that's almost a month away, just a few more days in a month. So that's February 23rd to the 26th. Please be making plans to be here for that. We're going to have a follow-up meeting for camp in the fellowship hall after services tonight. Please meet me in there. Just some follow-up things there, and to nail down some specifics. On our prayer list, there's a young man named Brody Shoemaker who graduated in Lauren's class from Central. He was killed in an accident last week. Please be praying for his family. Quinn Hollis has been sick and dealing with some respiratory problems. She had some chest x-rays done today, and those came back clear, but they're still running some blood work, so please be praying for little Quinn. Becky Basham, remember she broke her hand, I think that was yesterday. She's going to have surgery next Wednesday. They're going to put some pins in her hand to stabilize that and help that heal up. Tomorrow morning, Kerwin is going to have hip replacement surgery, and he said he plans by lunchtime to be at Charlie's, so we'll see if that goes to plan. It won't, but he's hopeful. So be mindful of Kerwin as he goes into that. I think he has to be there by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then Carl Watson, this is the husband of Woody's cousin, is asking for prayers concerning his cancer treatments. Any other announcements or prayer requests this evening? Let's bow together. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day you've given us and for the beautiful sunshine we've been able to enjoy. Thank you for the changing of the season that we have witnessed, Lord. We pray that you would continue to bless us with everyone being safe on the roads and a continuation of good health in this. Father, we know that so many are dealing with issues right now with their health, that you would bring them back to a measure of it. Be with Quinn as she's under the weather, Lord, that she may recover quickly. Be with those who are battling cancer treatments, and as they're fighting through those, that they may be strong and they may lean on you. Father, be with those who have lost loved ones. We're mindful of the upcoming events we have going on in this congregation. We pray that those may be fruitful, that they may bring glory to you, Lord. Father, thank you for this opportunity to be here this evening, to open up the pages of your word, to delve into them. Father, help us to always be students of your word. We pray all this through Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Good evening. We're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 4 again this evening. We're going to be looking at verses 8 through 37. Verses 8 through 37. Quite the lengthy account here. But we're going to break it down for our purposes tonight. Let's look at verses 8 through 17 here in just a moment. Are there any questions or comments from last week or anything leading up to right now? Okay. Let's look at verses 8 through 17. Before we get into this, Elisha is going to raise the Shunammite woman's son. We're going to read it, and we're going to break it down as we work through. If there's things that stand out to you, please raise your hand. We'll get the microphone to you, and let's discuss it. Want to have as much interaction as we can here. There are some interesting things along the way as we look at these few verses. Verse number 8. Now it happened one day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a notable woman, and she persuaded him to eat some food. Let me ask this. What do some of your other translations read in verse number 8 when it says notable woman? Okay, well-to-do. Prominent, right? Prominent woman, perhaps wealthy, you may read. So keep that in mind. She persuaded him to come eat some food. And so it was, as often as he passed by, that he would turn in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, "Look now, I know that this is a holy man of God who passes by us regularly." Now, pay attention here when it starts saying holy man of God. Elisha is going to be referenced as the man of God almost throughout the entirety of the rest of this account. Verse number 10. Please, let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed up there for him, and a table, and a chair, and a lampstand, so it will be, whenever he comes to us, that he can turn in there. And it happened one day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room, and he lay down there. And then he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Call this Shunammite woman." And when he called her, she stood before him, and he said to him, "Say now to her," so he's speaking to Gehazi, "Look, you have been concerned for us with all this care. What can I do for you? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?" And she answered, "I dwell among my own people." So he said, "What then is this to be done for her?" And Gehazi answered, "Actually, she has no son, and her husband is old." And so he said, "Call her." And when he had called her, she stood in the doorway. Then he said, "About this time next year you shall embrace a son." And she said, "No, my lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant." Verse 17, "But the woman conceived and bore a son, and when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had told her." So we're looking at a very powerful, miraculous story found here in 2 Kings chapter 4. It's going to talk of this Shunammite woman and her encounter with the man of God or the prophet Elisha. And it culminates then in the miraculous raising of her son. We're going to see how she is treated and how she treats others. We're going to see Elisha's compassion. We're going to see a lot of unwavering faith by this Shunammite woman. We're going to see the power of God as he raises her son from the dead. And isn't it interesting that there's power in God to bring life where there seems to only be death? Isn't that what he's still about today? To bring life where death is reigning? Isn't that what Romans chapter 5, verse number 8 would reveal to us? That while we were yet sinners, while we were dead in our sins, Christ still died for us because he wants to give us eternal life. God is always in the business of offering life, abundant life. So we've read verses 8 through 17 there. What stood out to you? Where is Elisha right now? If she's a Shunammite woman, where is Elisha? Shunem. He is in Shunem. Where is that? Okay. Let's get a little bit smaller here, Woody. You are correct. So we're looking, it's southwest from the Sea of Galilee, and it's southeast from Mount Carmel, which is where Elisha is going to be later on in our text. When Elisha comes through town there is a notable woman, prominent was mentioned, wealthy, well-to-do, and she invites him to come have a meal. But it's not just him, it's also his servant Gehazi. And as often as he passed by, he would go in and have food. He would have a meal in their home. What are we seeing out of this woman already? Hospitality, right? She has the means to offer this to him. And so she's not only sharing that, but she's also offering up her home. We'll see in just a moment. And she says to her husband that this is a holy man of God who passes by us regularly. So Elisha is walking back and forth, whether he's staying in the town of Shunem or he's going back and forth from different areas all the way to Mount Carmel and back. But every time he comes through there, he says, "You know what? I got a warm bed." Or he doesn't know that yet. He's got a warm meal and a place to rest for just a moment. That's a comforting thought, isn't it? That no matter when he's coming through or why he's coming through, he can stop by and knock on the door, and he knows he's got a place to stay. You have a place like that? Growing up, did you have a place like that? I hope you did. I've got 3 sets of parents. I have my parents, biological, and I've got 2 other sets of parents that I call, they might as well be my parents, right? If I needed anything, I could just go to them. I could knock on the door, and they were going to let me in. They were going to treat me as their son, and they still do. But Elisha is able to, at this point, as not necessarily a stranger, because she recognizes him as the man of God, but isn't it also great that when you're traveling and you go worship with the brethren at a different state or wherever, and they say, "Hey, why don't you come have lunch with us? Hey, do you need a place to stay?" You get offered that, don't you, when you're traveling? I hope you do. The church is good. God knew what he was doing when he established the church, and he put forth hospitality as one of those, one of the traits of a Christian. There's an interesting request made there in verse number 10. What is she asking her husband? Okay, remodel or addition, right? Let's make a small room in the upper area here on the wall, and let us put a bed for him, and a table, and a chair, and a lampstand. So he's not just laying on the floor, which would be plenty good for him. You know, back in the day, we could just couch surf wherever we wanted to. He's not even having to couch surf. He's got a bed. So he's there. And so she asked her husband, can we make this upper room on the wall and put these items in there? Let's make a place for him to stay so that he knows that he's welcome, that he can rest, that he can come into our home, and we will take care of him. Now, I want to take a moment in this text, something that I've never really made application of, but I'm going to from now on. What do we see here between the husband and the wife? Okay, communication. What else? Cooperation. Okay. What else? See, the women always have the good ideas. Hold on. Okay. Right, and that's... I was talking to Jessica this afternoon about something of... I can't remember exactly what the conversation was, but the idea of individuals who they think, well, if you stay at home and you don't work, then how do you go about buying presents for someone? And that thought process is so funny to me, and I'm making a point here. It's like, well, that's your husband's money, and then you have no money to actually buy presents from. And Jessica and I were joking about it. He said, I never bought a present in my life. I don't know whose birthday is coming up, right? And that's a whole different conversation of it's your money and my money. Look, it's our money if we're married. Miss Doris.
She was making a suggestion, asking kind of permission.
Okay.
Yet he was going along.
Yes. Okay. So Miss Doris made kind of the point I'm making here. She made it was a question. It wasn't a, hey, we're going to do this. It's a, what if we did this kind of thing? I'm gonna suggest this, and then the husband's gonna say, hey, you know what? That's a good idea. And so what are we seeing here in their marriage? Communication, cooperation, whatever you want to call it, but what's being seen here? Yes, ma'am. T's laughing. I don't know if this is good.
Yeah, this is for T's benefit too. Submissiveness.
Okay, submissiveness, right? So here's what we'll take from that. We're seeing a godly marriage with the biblical roles being followed, right? And so I've never made that application here, and I'm going to from now on. So the husband is the head of the household, and the wife is going to respect that role, but the husband also respects his wife, and the idea of, you know what? Yeah, let's do that, because this is something that we have the capability to do. So they're hospitable, they're giving of much that they have, and so the idea that the woman is requesting, not demanding. The Bible is so cool. You start seeing these little tidbits, and the fact that you can study over and over and over again, and you realize years down the road that we missed something significant. We're never going to be able to piece together all the knowledge that God has laid before us. But I 100% believe the Bible is designed for us to find these little nuggets. That way you get excited and your zeal catches back on fire and you say, man, this is so cool. Why have I missed this for so long? God, what else is in your word for me? Okay, that's our tangent for this evening. Yes, sir.
She obviously put a lot of thought into this.
Okay.
Because if you look at, she obviously put a lot of thought into this, because if you look at verse 10, she sells it to her husband. And I can visualize her saying, you know what, let's put a bed right here, and then maybe a table, a chair, and a lampstand.
Yeah, 100%. Because if it was just us, we'd probably been like, that section of the floor is open, and here's a blanket, right? There's a bed, there's a tablecloth, and there's other things in there. So it's not just a place to stay. You can make this your home. Yes, sir.
You're just talking about the application, the spiritual vision that she has, she's sharing with her husband. She talks about him being a man of God,
Yep.
and then they make this plan to do these things. And I think that's the important part for our marriages. Is we
Yes.
have to have spiritual vision and work together in those spiritual visions.
Yes. Great comments. Okay. And it happened one day, verse number 11, that he came there and he turned into the upper room to lay down. So I don't know if he has the key to their house, or if he just knocked on the door, whatever, but he was coming back in to rest for that evening, and him and Gehazi are there. And he said to his servant Gehazi, "You need, call this Shunammite woman, and I'm going to ask her, because she's been so hospitable to us. They've opened up their home. They're able to share these things. I need to ask her this question of, what can I do for you? What can I do for you?" She stood before him, and he asked that question. But he says, "Do you want me to speak on behalf of the king? Do you want me to speak to the commander of the army?" Well, I can pretty much do whatever you want me to, but I need to ask you before I do any of this. He's commending her for her care, and there's a process to his questions. And what does she answer? The end of verse number 13. "I dwell among my own people." Right. Essentially, it's saying what? I don't need anything. I'm good. And you got to take a moment and step back and say, I was just given an audience with the king or the commander of the army. Some people may say, "Oh, yeah, I'll go talk to the king. Yeah, maybe maybe I don't like this person over here. Maybe the army could send a few guys that way and just kind of stand out front of their door." But her humility in saying, I dwell among my own people. I'm okay. I'm okay. That's a great example of hospitality, isn't it? I'm going to give you these things, and I expect nothing in return. You don't owe me anything for my hospitality.
Scott, one thing that I noticed just looking at the passage, if you go back in, she's a great woman. She's considered, and she's offering food for Elijah as he comes through on his circuit. So she's providing something for him to eat, and she has, "Hey, why don't we have this?" So in the passage that she dwells among her own people, when she's offered to have influence outside of that,
Right.
She's not interested in it. But she's very interested in what's going on around her immediate locale.
Yep.
Which is oftentimes what we ought to be focused on instead of worrying about way outside our zip
Right.
code.
What's your circle of influence, right? That's a great comment. All right. So we're at the end of verse number 13 there, looking at this section. And then Elisha continues. He said, "So what can I do for her? What is to be done for her? I want to repay her in some way." And then Gehazi answers. He said, Actually, she has no son, and her husband is old. And so essentially she's past childbearing age, and her husband is old too. Elisha then promises her a son that time next year. And what does the Shunammite woman say? "Stop playing with me," right? I am. It reminds me of Sarah. My womb is dried up, right? Don't play with me. "Don't lie to your maidservant," is what she says. But the woman conceived at the appointed time that Elisha had told her. No surprise to us. We've seen these promises come to pass every time. What has just been done for that woman? Has it opened up more doors? Has it blessed her life? What's going on with her now? It's a blessing, right? But for how long? We'll see here in just a moment. We've been introduced to the Shunammite woman. We've been introduced to her husband. We've been introduced to Gehazi. This is Elisha's servant. Elisha is the main, or I say main character. Actually, a Shunammite woman, I would argue, is the main character here. But so that's 8 through 17. We're kind of fast forward through 8 or 17 or 18 and following here, and then pick back up a little bit later. But the son is born. So she has this child, as Elisha said she would. He grew up, and he was old enough to be in the fields. So really doesn't have to be super old, right? 8, 9, 10, able to actually go out and do some hard manual labor. And he was out with his dad, and what does he say? What does he say in verse 19? Right, my head. And so there's the text has an exclamation point there, so I'm wondering, excruciating pain, it would seem. Something is wrong with his head. And so his father says, okay, go ahead and carry him to his mother, he says to his servant. So he carried him to his mother, and he sits there in her lap until noon. And then what? And then he died. Verse 21. We're still kind of moving fast here. She goes, and where does she lay her son? Okay, on the prophet's bed, right? On Elisha's bed. Why do you think that is? Why do you think she went and laid him on the bed? I don't have an answer. I'm just asking. Okay, I think so too, right? Elisha's correlated with God. I'm putting him on his bed. That's my correlation there. I'm going to put him as close to God as I can in that aspect. And then she either hires or sends for one of her own servants. And she says, I need you to get a donkey ready, and we're going to make haste. We're going to go fast. She's in a hurry to get to the man of God. The husband asked her a question in verse number... Well, let's look at verse number 22. Then she called to her husband and said, please send for one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God. So there it is again, man of God, and come back. So he said, why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. And then she said something that just blows my mind. What does she say? 3 little words. All is well, or it is well. All I could think about studying for that is the song, It Is Well With My Soul. Even in the midst of all of that, it's well. It is well. Just as she mentioned there, I dwell among my own people. I'm not looking for affluence anywhere outside of this. I'm okay here. Her son has just died, and the husband asks her, why are you rushing off to go see the man of God? And she says, it is well. It's okay. Then she saddled the donkey, verse 24, and she said to the servant, drive and go forward, and do not slacken the pace for me unless I tell you. And she departed, and she goes up to where? Mount Carmel. And I meant to look up the distance between Shunem and Mount Carmel, but I did not do that. If someone wants to do that here in just a moment, I won't get you in trouble for being on your phone. But if you could, how long? 30 miles? 32 miles, right? So that even on a donkey, that's a pretty good day's trek. You're not on a horse, right? You're not going to run that. You're a pretty good day's trek there, so it may have taken her a day or two. 32 miles in a day. Uphill. Uphill? I agree, though. Justin's like those messengers in Africa, right? Just, hey, go. And he's going. It is well, though. And you think, your son is lying on the bed in the upper room. How is it well? How is it well? And we already talked about that. She's already been a recipient of God's blessings. And so when she says it is well, we're looking at, no matter the outcome, she knows it's going to work out. Yes, sir.
I kind of have the belief that she probably thought all was well because she'd go to Elijah, and Elijah would pray to God or approach God, and the son would be revived.
Yes, sir. No, I agree.
Just a thought.
No, I agree. I agree. And the idea of she knows that she's going to give this to God, right? This is going to be, God's going to handle this for me, however he's going to handle it. Something else that just popped into my mind when she says, I'm going to to the man of God, and I'm going to come back. What does that remind you of? Okay. That's good. That's not actually where I was connecting. Yes, sir. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Yep. Was going to raise his son. That's right. And so remember when they're down there and he tells his servants, don't go any further. Me and the lad are going up to worship and what? And we're coming back. He had that faith that God was going to raise his son. So she's there. And who comes out to, or let's back up just a moment. Verse number 25, she departed and went to the man of God at Mount Carmel. So it was when the man of God saw her far off, so he's probably up on the mountain. And look, the mountain over there is not necessarily 13,000 feet, right? It's still big. You're going from sea level up. That if you've ever been to like the West Coast in Seattle, you're on the beach and there's a mountain right next to you. That's a huge elevation gain there. But he's on Mount Carmel, so he's up there on top, and he's able to see her coming from afar off. So she may have looked like an ant, but he saw her and he recognized her. And he tells who to go down there and meet her. Gehazi, the servant. That's some good delegation, right? Go ahead and trek down there for a minute. He says, you need to say to her, is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? There's the wordplay, right? She says it is well before she leaves, and Gehazi is going to ask via Elisha, is it well? Is it well with you, with your husband, with your child? And she answered, it is well. Again, wait a second. Your son is dead in the upper room. That her faith is beginning to really, her unwavering faith is truly being able to be seen here. But here's what I find interesting. So Gehazi has come down the mountain, and he's asking these questions, and what does she do? She's still walking to the man of God, right? She doesn't really, she's listening to Gehazi, but she's coming to Elisha. She's going up to the man of God. But Gehazi came near to push her away, she came to the man of God at the hill, and she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress, and the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me. And then in verse 28, so she said, did I not ask a son of my Lord? Or did I ask a son of my Lord? She's kind of coming and saying, I didn't ask you for this son. You gave me this son, but now he's dead. And then she asked, did I not say, do not deceive me? So why would you give me this joy and then take it away from me? This is a very human interaction here, right? These are questions that are going through our minds when things like this happen, when tragedies happen. Why did you let my son die? Why did I lose my child? Verse 29. Then he said to Gehazi, get yourself ready. You take my staff in your hand, and you be on your way. And if you meet anyone, do not greet him. If anyone greets you, do not answer him. But I want you to get to the son and lay my staff on his face as quickly as you can. Verse 30 should pique our interest. Look at what she says. And the mother of the child says, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. Have we seen that before? Not in this text, but further back, right? Look back at chapter 2. 3 times Elisha is going to say those exact words to his master, Elijah. Let's just look at one of the accounts here. Chapter 2, 2 Kings chapter 2, verse number 2. But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." And we know that he followed him through and through. And so when the Shunammite woman says those same words, I find that very interesting. I'm not going to leave you. Yes, sir.
Going to him, thinking that he was going to heal her son. Because here's my train of thought. It seems like that, but the whole time she's telling people it's okay. And to me, I don't see it as like, it's okay, God's going to take care of it. I see it as somebody who's denying what's going on, or I'm fine. But they're hurting inside, and we see this in today's society with all the mental issues that we have going on, where people say that on the outside and they're hurting on the inside, and they don't want to talk to somebody else about it, even her own husband. Then she goes up to the man of God, and she doesn't say, "Come heal," which would, to me, be conclusive. She went to him for that reason. She says, "Why did you put me through this?"
Right.
So I'm not sure I can conclude that she went to him for that intention. Again, seems like it is all the way up there. I mean, she rode the 32 miles up to Carmel, but just that statement to me makes me think she went to him in anger. I told you, don't put this upon me, and I'm depressed now, and all the other things that would happen with a child dying. So are we sure we can say that she went to him in faith like Abraham did?
Well, you make an interesting point on it doesn't even have to, we don't have to guess about it. She's in distress, right, or depressed. It says, she is in great distress, and the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me. Good point on the, I'm fine, right, on the outside. I still think that, and now conclusive, I don't know. I think you can look at it both ways on this. But the idea of, I'm fine, I'm going there, I'm going to pour out my feelings to the man of God. But the idea that Elisha sins for the healing, I think we're going to have to come back to, at least that's his purpose, right? So her purpose, I don't know. That's something to chew on for sure. Hold on, we got 2. Woody's got one, then Paul's got one.
So one of the things to think about on the passage there, specifically regarding what Justin's talking about, she laid the boy on Elisha's bed with purpose. And with the train of thought, as Elisha gives her direction to go when she's going back, he's like, the first thing he said was, don't turn, don't talk to anybody, you direct. So why? Why would he say that? And the train of thought is that it's specifically for the focus of where she's directed. Her frame of mind going to him was exactly the same. I'm fine. She was going somewhere. That was her focus. It was not to be distracted by something else. Her focus was, I have an objective to meet, and that is to see the man of God. She put her son on his bed, and her objective was to get there. She called for the servant, and what did she say to him?
Yeah, make haste. Don't stop until I get there.
Don't stop unless I tell you to.
Yep.
And that was her point. And that's the point of the passage, ultimately.
Good thoughts. Paul?
Well, I appreciate what Justin brought, but there is definitely a lot of emotions going on here.
Right.
And I think about, when Jesus was approached by a man and he asked Jesus to heal his son, and Jesus said, "Do you believe?" And the man says, "I believe, help my unbelief." This is kind of what we see here, I think, in my eyes, is that we have someone that believes, but she also has some unbelief there and some frustration, some anger. But, the reason why I draw that conclusion is that when you come to verse 30, she says, I'm not going to leave you. We're going to see this through together. And so I see that there's some belief there, but still, this is a phenomenal experience for her that is just, grappling with all these different emotions.
Right. Everett's got a comment.
I would summarize this as a woman on a mission.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much what he was mentioning too.
Is that, she was trying to get to the person that she was either frustrated with or the only person that she had that could solve it.
Sometimes it's the same person.
Right. And in these days, it wasn't long after death before the burial.
Right.
And so there's some urgency here, and she's going to go this distance, and knowing that if this doesn't work, don't go back and bury her son probably just as quickly, because they didn't have just a whole lot of time.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, there's a lot to think about on those sections there. I had a thought just a second ago and it went away. My train of thought crashed. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I just need you to know that you just pretty much made eye contact with me, and then you were like you didn't even see. I was like,
sorry.
anyways, I thought you were doing the whole
No.
she's talking again. I'm glad that Justin brought this up and I promise you, I whispered to my mom, wow, I didn't read it that way when you were talking about all is well. And so then I started thinking my interpretation of it was she wanted to talk to the manager.
Yeah.
She knew who to go
That's
to.
it.
And then I was thinking after you said that, wow, where am I coming from that my first thought was not that it's okay, God's got it. But actually, I think it's interesting that we're some of us at least are interpreting it as she was really upset that it played out this way, but she knew who to go to. She knew to go to the man of God,
Right.
and that her anger and her pain, it was not a lack of faith. That was still her being faithful.
That's it.
But because I get the anger,
No doubt.
But I do think there's a way to be angry about the way things are going and still have
and sin
faith.
not, right? Be angry and sin not.
Right.
Which now you got me back on my train of thought. So the idea that we're just kind of blending all these, right? Have you ever, and I will raise my hand first. You get angry at God and you ask Him a lot of questions, and you're not even. I mean, it is arrogance, but you're frustrated, right? Why are these things happening? But then you sit back and you go, oh. So I had to go through that to get to this point, right? We call that providence. We were looking at that last week. These things had to happen. I didn't see it. I couldn't see it in the moment because I'm blinded by anger or rage or whatever you want to call it, or this is what I'm focused on. And then you look back and you say, okay, I see it now, right? Here's what I will always say. It's okay to question and be angry with God as long as you go to Him for the answers. I'll stand on that one. All right. Then we get a very interesting account of Elisha showing up into the house. He goes up in the upper room, he closes the door. What does he do? His hands are on his hands. His eyes are on his eyes. His mouth is on his mouth. It's a strange picture here. But what happens? The child's flesh becomes warm, but he's not raised yet. And then Elisha gets up and he walks around the room and he repeats the process. And then what does the child do? He sneezes 7 times. What an interesting little tidbit in there. I don't know why he sneezed. I think the number 7's of interest, right? You're going to see that number throughout Scripture. But then Gehazi just goes down and tells the woman, go pick up your son. What a roller coaster of emotions. So you see a very, like I said, human interaction, just legitimate feelings of what's going through this woman's mind who again didn't ask for the son, but then was given the son, and then the son was taken away essentially. he died. And then she's frustrated. She's going to the man of God there. He sends Gehazi, and the staff didn't actually raise the son, but he's going on his way there. There's just a lot of details in this account and these verses here. But we're going to see a lot of compassion there from Elisha. I wonder if he was thinking, oh, I did give her that son. I promised that son. And then he died. And it says there too, she's in great distress and God has hidden it from me. And so there was a purpose too of, and I do wonder this, with that distress and he hid it from me, I wonder if that was to allow that woman to show her faith, right? I'm going to push through this. These are the things I'm going to do. We've got too much to rush through this. We'll kind of wrap it up next week. Maybe 5 minutes next week. I just don't want to hold you over right now. Great class. Good comments tonight. Lots to think on and chew on. Good perspectives coming from this of ways that don't always read it first way through. Okay. Thank you for your attention, and Lord willing, we'll see you next Wednesday. Well, I'll see you Sunday, hopefully, but Wednesday for class. It's already off. Oh, there it is. If you were in the meeting for camp on Sunday or weren't able to make it, please see me in the fellowship hall just for some clarification on that. Thank you.